Okay, welcome all to this March 25th, 2026 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I want to welcome our newest board member, James McElhaney, who just took the oath moments ago. If you wouldn't mind, Amanda, taking roll call.
Sure. We have Chairman Nicholas Vorleaf,
Here.
Member Fred DeVito,
Here.
and Member James McElhaney.
Here.
All right. Would you all please join me for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to switch the agenda very slightly. And that agenda is to move the approval of our minutes last, instead of right now,
Okay.
so that we can not hold up Kurt for his presentation. Do I need to make a motion for that?
To change the agenda.
Yeah. Can I have, I'll make a motion to change the agenda to take item 2 and make it after item 3 so that Kurt can do his presentation.
Whatever, it doesn't gonna take long, so do whatever you need.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a unanimous vote to move the minutes to the second part of our agenda. So the first part of our agenda then is going to be a presentation by Kurt of 48 East Main Street. Kurt has given us a brief presentation last time, but for James, this is all brand new. And going over some of the changes, there have been a couple of site plan changes, I think, along the way, and we had an inspection this past weekend. So Kurt can update us on the current status of things. Kurt Johnson, welcome to our meeting tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna bore you guys, and just for your benefit, just kind of go over the variances we've done this project.
It's not boring, Kurt.
Okay. The site is 48 East Main Street. It's right over near Julian Stewart's site on Spring Street, corner of Spring Street and East Main Street. It's in the B1 zone district, and there is an existing dwelling, a 5-unit apartment building on that site. That'll be demolished. It sits in the B1 zone.
B1 zone, I'm just going to interrupt for a minute because James is so no, it's a business 1 zone. That's what that stands for.
So, being in the B1 zone, it triggers, you'll find in the zoning code, there's urban regulations for new construction. So that's kind of an overlay over this thing for, in the B1 zone, it's a series of requirements, particular to the B1 zone and the development of the parcel. And it does override the typical bulk zoning regulations within the zone. So with that, this building, per the urban regulations, is required to be built exactly on the property line, the front property line. So it would need to be built along here and Spring Street. And in this location, basically, when working with the planning board, they found that this layout was preferable. It would be nearly impossible to build the building on the property line here. And I think that would be made more for the downtown part of the village here in terms of where you have sidewalks and buildings on a street face that's kind of regular along Charles Colton Boulevard, East Main Street here. So we need a variance for that. The other things we need a variance for as it pertains to the urban regulations. So it's the setback from East Main Street and there's setback from Spring Street here. So where 0 is required, we're asking for a 33-foot variance, which would allow it the farthest corner of the building to be here, and then from Spring Street, 29 feet, so it allows the building to be placed in this location away from the frontage on Spring Street. In addition to that, the urban regulations require that you have 90% of the frontage as building. So that would require basically all of this less 10% to be building face. So again, on this particular lot, that doesn't seem to make much logical sense. So we're asking for a variance to allow this building to exist here. It'd be about 53% of frontage on these two sides as they face the two streets. Another requirement in the urban regulations is that where you don't have a building, that you provide garden walls. There's no real definition of what the garden wall is, but it's calling for garden walls. So that would require basically a garden wall to be placed on this frontage here. And again, in this location, it doesn't make much sense. We have snow removal along the street. Here's the edge of the curb here. So that would just impede sightline and snow removal, things like that. I don't think it achieves any goal. That's more, I think, for downtown center here. The last item we need a variance for, when we submitted this project to the planning board and when we first were before the ZBA, it's required, there's 15 apartments proposed in this building, and you were required to have 1 parking space per unit. So that would require 15 parking spaces. In the configuration that was submitted, we have 19 parking spaces. So at that time, when we submitted this, we had actually an additional 4 spaces. So we met the requirement of 15 plus 4, because there's 19 shown on here. So in the process we've been going through here, the village board has actually changed the zoning to require 1.5 parking spaces per apartment unit. So that will require this application to have 23 parking spaces. So we're shy 4 spaces on that of what's required. But it is kind of a unique situation here in that we were in the process, we met the zoning and actually in excess prior to it being changed while we're going through this process. So that's kind of our hardship there. It's based on unit count. Now, I will say that it's the intention of the owner of the building to dedicate 1 parking space per apartment unit. So when you sign a lease, you have 1 parking space. There'd be 4 extras for, guest overflow, whatever. If someone doesn't have a car, I guess you could, dedicate that to somebody else. But that's the intent here. So everyone will have at least 1 parking space.
And Kurt, this is for 15 apartment buildings. I don't know if you've mentioned that.
Units,
Apartment
yes.
units.
Yes.
Not
Now,
buildings.
when we look at the Institute of Traffic Engineers studies, that are nationally known studies that are out there, they've looked at various developments and uses and things like that. When we look at something that's very similar to this, and it's not close to rail transit, which we are, which actually would be a bonus at this point, I would think. When we apply their model to this, for this size building, the unit count, basically we're required to, we would say 19 parking spaces would meet the requirements in their studies for this unit count. So we're right at what's required with the Institute of Traffic Engineers studies that have been done on that. That's not a village study, that's a
Right.
United States study. So there's 5 variances now that we need on this project.
Right. All right. Kurt, I have a question for you. Obviously, one of the ordinances that you need a variance for has to do with building on the frontage. I never asked this question before, but if there was a sidewalk on your inside of the property line, does that allow, like buildings on Charles Coleman, for them to be at the edge of the sidewalk rather than the edge of the property line? I don't know.
Actually,
Just a curiosity.
When you look at the surveys along Charles Coleman, the property line is actually somewhere in the sidewalk.
Interesting.
So some of the sidewalk is actually on private property, some is within the right of way.
Right.
So if you were to meet the urban regulations, you'd have to bring your building into the sidewalk.
Right.
I think the intent of the regulation is to the property line.
Right.
And usually when you have a sidewalk, it's in a
It's in the-
municipal right of way.
Right.
So,
I see. I'm just curious about that. Thank you. And James, just so you're aware, some of the background behind the garden wall requirement, and Karen, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you kind of taught me this a couple of meetings ago. One of the reasons that the garden wall is often it is in the ordinances, is because if a building does not meet the edge of property line requirements, the garden wall provides a bit of a visual continuity. So if there are other buildings that are way up front, but another building is set back, the garden wall put in place between building 1 and building 3, let's say, and your building is number 2, just provides a visual continuity, and that's why it's kind of there to just smooth out the line of structure.
yeah, the idea is that it maintains the street wall. The urban regulations that they're referring to are they're commonly referred to as form-based code. Unless you're working in this industry, that probably means nothing to you. Another way to understand them is traditional neighborhood development. So like think East Village, like village, straight up village, like everything's all up against the road. And so the street wall is the wall of the buildings against the road, the street.
And if you're familiar with the site where this is, as you go from the intersection with Coulter Avenue, East Main Street, as you go south on that, it kind of opens up from the traditional downtown setting where you have streets or buildings right on the sidewalk, and then street. It kind of opens up, so it really, in this location, it doesn't call for that maintaining of a garden wall, because the buildings are in, out, all over down through there, down to Pauling Commons. That's where it stops, after Pauling Commons, the B1 zone.
All right. And a couple of the discussions that have been had already, Tom and I were there at the site inspection this past Saturday, and some of the things that came up at our last meeting, just to reiterate, is that currently the design of this building is a bit more like the design of the buildings in the Pauling Commons, which was built into a very clearly commercial space, and that building kind of matches the look in there. This, although in a B1 zone, is very much surrounded by very residential-looking buildings. There is no other business-like space. I mean, the Jillian Stewart Realtor is even in an old home. And some of the things have been brought up by Tom, one of our other members, and me as well, is we would like to see, at the early stages, like now, we asked Kurt to come up with some possible suggestions too, some simple design elements to be added in the way of trim, perhaps window boxes, I don't know, shutters, things like that, to make it look more like a large residence rather than a large block of a building, a big box. And I think that that design works very well at the Pauling Commons area. Kurt, one of your comments on Saturday was, well, you know, nobody maintains window boxes, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they do, but also nobody uses shutters anymore either, but they're all over houses all over the village and all over the country. Yes?
Nicholas.
Yes.
My understanding is that the architectural review is under the purview of the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a letter that you guys will be, like, will you be making an official letter of recommendation then to the planning board with these aesthetic suggestions?
It's probably a good idea. Tom had brought up a lot of the Victorian elements of architecture and style in that particular neighborhood. And I agree with Tom on this. I think that one of the purviews of the village, of the zoning board, is to try to make sure that new construction matches in that neighborhood. So perhaps that's a great idea. In fact, I'm going to just say it is a great idea. I think that we probably should draft a letter about some of the architectural elements and small things. I don't see, you know, expensive things. And I know you were going to think about it too and come up with some possible.
We took that under advisement, obviously. We're trying to, you know, we've got some more details around windows in here. We've got these corbels that, you know, we can provide under the overhangs here to kind of give that feel.
Right, we saw some of the trim on the building that's there
Yes.
now, and we talked about some that was probably masked by some of the new roofing and aluminum siding.
You know, expanding this porch that Tom had mentioned.
Right.
Come over here to give that a little bit more of a feel as you're driving along the street.
Right,
Things on here, it's like, personally, I really hate when they do shutters on the windows, because the shutters don't look like they can work.
right.
Because they're supposed to cover a single window.
Yeah, yeah.
You can have them in isolated spots, but
That does kind of make more sense there. I agree with you on that.
But it's like some, yes, no, you know, do we put them on some and not others?
Mm-hmm.
Window boxes, I really think that's gonna be a maintenance issue that people are gonna, you know, your own apartment, are you gonna water your plants all the time? I mean, some people might, but also I don't want dead things hanging all over.
I know, when I was in an apartment, we used to grow cherry tomatoes at our kitchen window. I mean, some people might not, but I know I did.
Yeah, I mean, if they're all planted the same and all maintained, it
Right,
looks beautiful. But
sure.
it's a very easy thing to not maintain.
I understand,
I mean, you could kind of like re-articulate that as a landscaping suggestion. I agree that, you know, requiring private residences to maintain window boxes seems like a big ask. But maybe, but, you know, I mean, you know, a similar look might be, you know, those big planters, like
Yeah, I
along
mean,
the front.
Right.
You know, I mean, you could
Certainly,
suggest to the
we
planning
can
board
have
that,
windows on here,
yeah, I mean, I think you could accomplish some similarities that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
great.
also, you know, to that Karen's point here, you know, we can build this up, you know, the idea of making this, I think the idea of an alley of trees here
Mm-hmm.
and here, that will also, I mean, you shouldn't use vegetation to shield buildings, but
Sure.
I think that would soften it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
too, because we would have, like, there was a couple trees over here, large trees over
Across the
here, and we do the same thing over
Right.
here, just to kind of visually break that a little bit.
Right, okay, Great. Yeah, I think we should draft up a letter. I'll actually reach out to the board members privately via email. We'll see if we can come up with some thoughts and organize them and present them as some design element possibilities, just again, so that it matches more. It's one of the big concerns that the ZBA often has, is that things seem like they fit. Some of the language that we try to abide by is in the comprehensive plan about trying to make buildings look like they've been here for 100 years now. Clearly, building materials and building techniques change over time, but trying to maintain the character of that at least would be something that I think would be important. Any additional comments or questions that board members have about this that we haven't
I got a
covered?
couple questions about traffic, Kurt. Right now, how many parking spots are there?
Well, there's 5 units in there. I don't know how many spaces. It's kind of ill-defined there because you park right off of Spring Street, but there's 5 apartments there. So we're upping it by 10 apartments.
Gotcha.
So it's really pretty negligible in terms of the traffic count there increasing.
And do and this might be getting ahead here, the owners of this project is complete. Do they have any idea the price points that they'll be letting the apartments for? Like, estimate?
I think that they are good because Pauling Commons is kind of like the high end of market value that we've got now. I think this owner is trying to be a little bit below that. I mean, some of the finishes, interior and stuff might not be as fancy, we'll call it, as the other building there. So I think the price point, they're still nice apartments, very nice apartments, but I think the price point, he's just trying to satisfy that need also, to kind of be a step below Pauling Commons possibly. Because I think that's probably the most expensive apartments in the village right now.
I don't know what they're going for, but you're probably right.
Yeah, the high end ones are like $3,400 a year for the 2-bedroom, 2-bath.
And these are still all single, one bedroom.
These are all 1-bedroom, yes, yes.
That's my next question.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah, these are 15 1-bedroom apartments.
Has there been any, and you said it was negligible, I'm just thinking bottleneck traffic during the morning. I drop my daughter off at the elementary school, right? During that 20-minute period between 8:30 and 8:45, when you have a combination of school buses and parents, East Main Street coming down the intersection. The addition of 10 cars during that time probably, in your opinion, isn't going to change things too much. Even if a train shuts things down for a little bit, we're not seeing a huge addition of congestion, in your opinion?
Correct, yes. I mean, and we find actually in Pauling Commons, the people that are in that 15-unit apartment building, quite a few of them work from home. They're not going in the morning. Those cars are there all day, some of them. So I think it's just a change in, I'm not gonna say a lot, all of them do, but some of them are people that don't leave the site for work, per se.
I'll add a little bit more information here. So the planning board reviews traffic as part of the SEQR, the State Environmental Quality Review Act review for the project. They're the lead agency. So you did submit information relative to traffic, and in general, the threshold under SEQR is 100 trips, an addition of 100 trips during a peak AM or peak PM or peak midday period. So it sounds like you're concerned about the peak AM period, but obviously we're nowhere near 100 trips on that. Obviously, there's also, other unique conditions that can push you into a traffic impact analysis, where you might be less than 100 trips. But in this case, the analysis is pretty clear that it is a de minimis amount of additional traffic.
And if it's one person per unit, I think that's probably
It's probably 1 or 2.
1 or 2.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, the trip generation is similar to how the parking demand is calculated. It's a ratio, 1 point whatever it is per dwelling unit. So it's a model that runs out and spits out a number of trips during the AM and PM peak period. So it's not a 1 for 1 and it's not a 2 for 2. It's somewhere in between.
Cool.
All right, great.
All right.
Thank you, Kurt. Was there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I mean, I think we've kind of gone over this. If there's anything that the board, I've taken your concerns under advisement. And do what we
Yeah,
can
thank
with
you.
it.
And like I said, we'll draft up a formal.
Question.
Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have one question. Is there on-street parking around this site?
There is no on-street parking around that site.
I think for
So
6
not
months
on
out of the
Springs-
year, you're not allowed to park on a
Yeah.
village street
Well,
because of possible snow.
there's nowhere to park there because you have the 2 lanes on East Main Street.
Yeah.
Once you get past the intersection, there's no on-street parking.
And there's no on-street parking allowed on Spring Street?
I don't believe so.
Very narrow.
I think the whole village ordinance is that there is no overnight parking between, what is it, October 15th and April 15th?
That's like in every
Yeah,
municipality
so,
around
and
here.
there is
Yeah.
no space.
Yeah, I don't even think Spring Street has a line down the middle. I think it's
Yeah,
just,
it's
No.
very
It's a
narrow.
one-way, right? Isn't it? Or-
No, it is a
Is
two-way,
it
it is a two-way.
but it is a narrow two-way.
Yeah.
It's a one-way if there's a big truck. So, all right, great. That's all I've got in the way of questions. So Kurt, thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question though for you, Amanda. When is our next scheduled zoning board meeting?
It's going to be April 22nd.
Okay, because that leads me to the next order of business. I'd like to make a motion that we set a public hearing for this so that we can listen to the public's opinions on some of these elements for our next ZBA meeting on April 22nd. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have unanimous aye votes, so we will have a public hearing set for that date. And Kurt, in the meantime, I will get a letter drafted up for you afterward, talking to the other ZBA members about some suggestions. Oh, I know we also talked about the possibility of a wind vane maybe on the cupola to just kind of make it, anyhow, just a few things. We'll see.
Yeah.
Just
All
some
right.
suggestions. I know you can be creative.
Yep, we'll do what we can.
Excellent.
All right, thank you all.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. All right, so we'll move on to our next order of business was approval of the minutes for our February 25th meeting. I have fully read through the minutes. James, I know you haven't been here for the last meeting to review the minutes to see if they're accurate. However, you are not required to have been at the meeting to vote on approving the minutes, just so you are aware of that. So can I have a motion to approve? Freddie, are you comfortable with approving the
Yes.
minutes? Okay,
Yes.
I should ask that first.
No, no,
Great.
I'm good.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from our February 25th meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
We have a unanimous vote. I won't ask for any nay votes. Okay, so the minutes for February 25th have been approved. Okay, Amanda, I'm going to ask you now, do we have any other business?
I got nothing.
All right. And Russ, is there anything that we haven't covered tonight in regards to anything that's happened that you think we should bring up before we let you go?
No, I think we're good.
All right, good. We had to hear your voice at least for a few moments here,
Thanks, Nicholas.
so that there's evidence of your presence. No. Okay, since there is no other business, can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
All right, can I have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a unanimous vote to adjourn. Thank you very